Welcome to Misspoke, a cycling podcast, and this is stage 5. If you've missed the previous stages, you can catch up wherever you get your podcast from, including Apple and Spotify, and on this particular platform that I'm using to record my podcast, which is called Spreaker, which is Spreaker, and I hope you enjoy my podcasts. If you do, please tell your friends and feel free to comment and give me some feedback. It's always nice to get some feedback. Now, a couple of weeks ago was what should have been the Paris Roubaix monument, one of the finest one-day cycling events. And hopefully we'll see it again this year, maybe later in the year, but it is a wonderful event. If you haven't been to it, certainly go and watch it. And if you can, do the sportive. Now, I did the sportive a few years ago, actually, and I wrote something about it at the time, and I thought I'd share that with you today. So here we go. This is called the Paris Roubaix Sportive. Try everything once, said Sir Thomas Beecham, except incest and folk dancing, to which I would add the Paris Roubaix Sportive. It was cold and drizzling as the Old Ports. By the way, I'm in a cycling club which is called the Old Portlians, often shortened to Old Ports. If you live anywhere around South London and you're interested in joining a cycling club, look up Old Portlians on the web. Anyway, back to the sportive. It was cold and drizzling as the Old Ports headed out of our hotel in Tourcoing to the Roubaix velodrome and the start point. Once there, we delayed as first one, then another Old Port decided to go shopping. Gloves, rain jacket, cap, and Ian decided to check his bike over. Then over the timing mat and off. Our little peloton picked up pace as we headed out of the beautiful old town of Roubaix and into open countryside, flat fields on either side, and passing small groups of riders who latched onto our train before being dropped. The pace increased, and I clung on. "Sit in the pack," said Steve. "You'll be all right." A delay to take a drink, a misjudgment on a corner, and I was 5 yards behind, then 10, then 20. "I'll catch up," I thought, and sprinted. The pace increased, and I fell behind again. What fucking pack. No more sprinting for me. I watched the Old Port's red train as it gradually faded into the distance and settled into my own rhythm. The wind ambushed you from the fields, and the rain was thin, malnourished, never weighty, but it soaked through. I forswore rain covers for my shoes, and soon regretted my failure to go shopping with the others. Nothing prepares you for the Ehrenburg trench. You've watched A Sunday in Hell and read about it. You've searched YouTube and heard about it. You watch the pros and their little recce films, but that all only hints at the horror. These aren't cobbles, they're boulders, crags, granite outcrops, sharp-edged stones to weigh down dead bodies, jagged and sharp with massive gaps between, big enough to swallow riders whole. The dirt down one side has been ploughed up by farmers to prevent riders cheating, and the pre-race barriers line the other side, forcing you onto the rocks like Odysseus. "Enough to shake the fillings from your teeth," goes the old saying, but this is worse. It shakes the dye from your hair, the dirt from beneath your fingernails, the paint gradually flakes from your bike frame. Zips come undone, the 0 tablets in your bottle froth and boil over. Your instinct is to slow down. If I go quick, I shall fall and break a collarbone, a neck, a leg. Yes, it happened to others. But you can't steer a line and hope to pick your way through the gaps, so counterintuitively, you must go faster and harder and try and glide over the cobbles and trust your bike to find its way. And it works. I even pass a few riders who haven't learnt the skill. Eventually it is over, and I slump over the bars and wait for my tingling fingers and shaking hands to calm down. The Ehrenburg is first and by far the worst, but the road goes ever on, and there are many more cobbled sections to traverse. I stop at all 3 feed stations and gulp down honey cakes and waffles and grab a plastic cup of energy drink. I need to pee and stand at the open pissoir, but the flow is weak and painful. The passing groups go too quick for me, but the individual riders tend to be slower than me, and the fat man striding along on his wooden bicycle, whom we had seen in Flanders the year before, is even slower than me, so for virtually the whole ride I'm alone and pushing against the wind. No minimum wage domestiques to shelter me, no Sky or Ineos cannon fodder to shield my aching limbs. After 60 miles I've had enough. My legs ache, my face has set into a Richter's grin, teeth bared and screaming mad at the sheep and the mountain bikers. A lady of a certain age sachets past and spots my old port's jersey. "Is that a UK club?" she asks. "Yes," I grunt, panting. "Are you enjoying it?" "No." She rides away. There are 18 cobbled sections on the 139-kilometre route, and the Ehrenburg is the worst. After that, nothing is as bad, although the Carrefour de l'Arbre seems to go on forever. "Ride on the crown," is the advice, but in some places this is only a few inches wide, falling away to steep rocky slopes on either side. On some sections there is a narrow dirt track between the cobbles and the grass, but this can be more tricky. Previous riders have worn deep and sudden ruts, and here also is where the flints and debris collect, and most punctures happen. An organised group of about 30 mountain bikers rumble past me. They're identically dressed in black and red tops marked Flandrian. They crowd the cobbles and steal my line. I shout feebly after them, but I'm ignored. A little way on, one goes flying and lands in a ditch, trapped and unable to unclip, wheel spinning and nose bleeding, and I'm glad. The rain comes and goes, and there are times when I remove my rain jacket and a pale sun briefly shines. The last 20 miles seem to take forever. I'm exhausted but can't give up, although I saw one rider waiting at a bus stop. His grimy, tearful face and worn-out bike and race number proclaims his failure to complete. The last couple of miles to the velodrome takes about 20 minutes. Not tiredness. In sight of the finish straight, my energy returns. But the traffic is like heading to IKEA on a Saturday afternoon before lockdown. It is raining heavily now, and riders weave in and out of the traffic, dicing with trucks and the Saturday shoppers. I turn into the velodrome. Some riders misjudge the slippery bend and choose this final moment to crash, and scan the stands for a group of cheering old ports. Nothing. The rain plashes on the cinder track, and a thin film of dirty water coats the banking. Many have finished with me, and there is no space or stomach for a sprint finish. The timer pings on the finish line, and the few spectators ride to acknowledge our dishevelled group. I've done it. The exit gate is packed. Medals are being placed around necks by damp podium girls, but there is a queue, so I grab a medal and drape it around my own neck, like Henry and his crown. I have no change of clothes, and so miss the iconic showers. The rest of the old ports have long since returned to the hotel, but I'm tired and can't remember the route. Luckily I spot John, and we meet up and find the way. It's late afternoon, and the rain is heavy now, and Roubaix is cold and dismal. The route is very slightly uphill and seems to go on forever. Eventually we reach the hotel and stumble upstairs. We emerge from the lift to be greeted by a scrubbed and tubbed Andy and Ian. His bloodied knee tells of his exploits. "Steve beat me by a wheel length," he says. "It takes me 20 minutes to get undressed, and I fall into the bath to soak and dream of cobbles. Would I do it again? Hell of the North, yes." If you know anything about cycling, and you know anything about Paris Roubaix, you'll know that there is a wonderful film about Paris Roubaix called A Sunday in Hell, which I can highly recommend. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube, or you can buy it as a DVD. Remember DVDs, and watch it. It's a fabulous film. There's also a book written, I think, by William Fotheringham called also A Sunday in Hell, which is about the film and about its making, and the director and the writer and the various stars and the people who did the music and the photography and so forth. And that also is a very interesting book. So A Sunday in Hell, if you haven't seen it, then catch it as soon as you can. And now for another one of my cycling monologues. This one is called the Fixie Rider. And by the way, I don't want you to think that I'm taking the piss out of people when I do these monologues. That is furthest from my mind. These monologues are in homage and occasionally in jest, and they are loaded with respect for my fellow members of the cycling fraternity. Anyway, the Fixie Rider. Hope you enjoy it. So anyway, I just bought a Fixie. I got it from some bloke off eBay. He was a courier, but he had to give it up. Doesn't have any brakes, of course, and he crashed, broke his neck. He's paralysed now, so he's not riding. Still, one man's sorrow is another man's joy, so they say. It was only 200 quid. He wanted 250, but I got the price down when I got there. He didn't have a choice. What's he going to do with a Fixie now? I love it. It's got these really narrow handlebars. He sawed them himself, and no brakes, obviously. Single gear. 46 by 16, which is perfect for most things. I might get some drop handlebars and use it on the track, always fancied that, and I'll probably put a front caliper brake on it. It's illegal not to have a separate brake, he knows that now. Didn't get any insurance payout, but people treat you differently on a Fixie, like you're a courier or something. I'm growing my hair out so I can have a ponytail and my beard is coming along. I might get a tattoo, like a skull or a bat or a two-headed snake or something, I don't know. I've renamed my house Hoxton in homage. You know, this is real cycling, weaving in and out of the traffic, ordinary flat pedals so you can step off easily. No helmet, this is cycling like it used to be, you know, retro and shit. Before carbon, gears and Di2 and Garmin and Strava and all that other crap. We're like knights of the road, we are. Some bloke in a white van nearly knocked me off going round the old street roundabout, bastard. The couriers and that looked down on me with their poncy caps and their tattoos and nose rings and those messenger bags and wearing headphones so they're like almost deaf. They think they're so cool. What's so great about a Fixie anyway? There's no gears, so it's a nightmare going up hills. And those handlebars, what's that all about then? They're dead uncomfortable. And no brakes, that's just silly. No wonder he crashed. Serves him right. I hate all that retro stuff. Anyway, what's wrong with carbon? Nothing. You want my opinion? I'm going to put it on eBay for 275 quid. Let some other mug bid for it. Wasted life riding on the track. It's boring. Anyway, I fancy a Colnago. Fixies, eh? Who needs them? Electric bikes, they're the future. I wonder if you can get an electric Fixie. Can you do that? How would that work? Just a front brake, an electric motor, single gear, sawn off handlebars, tattoo, goatee beard, ponytail, cut off jeans. Even at 64 I'd look like a right plonker. And now a word from my sponsor. Funnily enough, I was listening back to I think the first or third of the, or second even, of these podcasts, and there was an advert at the beginning. I thought, what's all that about? I haven't even got any listeners. And there was an advert for IBM, funnily enough. You have no idea how happy that made me feel, that the enjoyment of my podcast was spoiled by having an advert at the beginning. Anyway, the reason that happens is I think I signed up for monetization on Spreaker, and that's another word for making money out of podcasts, in case you didn't know. I've never made a penny out of my stuff. So if I can make some money out of these podcasts, that'll be a first. So make sure you click on the adverts or do whatever it is you're supposed to do, because I make a little bit of money out of it. So I'd like to thank you for that. I want to end stage 5 of the Misspoke podcast with chapter 2 of my little novella about the Liège, Bastogne, Liège sportive. And if you remember, or if you don't remember, chapter 1, check out Misspoke episode 4, and you can hear chapter 1, and that will give you a nice lead in to chapter 2. So here we go. The following week, a bit warmer, but not much. 40 miles this time, with an average of 12 miles an hour. Things were looking up. "Jays," said Eric, halfway round the usual route. "I can't handle the banter," Clovis said. "I know what you mean," said Eric, "but look at it this way. Those other cafes, they don't care if we go or not. Makes no difference to them, know what I mean? They don't talk to us, no friendly greeting, no smiles, nothing. At least with Jay, he might be a tosser and get on our nerves, but you can tell he's on his uppers, needs the business, and he's grateful. We should give him our business." "Maybe," Clovis said, "but he won't live long enough on what he gets from us." "It all helps," said Eric, "it all helps. But don't get into any banter." "Righto," said Eric, like a Battle of Britain pilot. They parked in front this time, moving chairs out of the way and leaning the bikes against the big glass window. Jay came over as they were moving furniture. "I've missed you guys," he said, shaking their hands in turn. "She's still gone, but the kids are all right. Love that song." "Usual?" "Thanks, Jay," said Eric. "Missed you too." The bearded man and the fat man were once again sitting at their usual table. The bearded one was reading the Daily Express. The fat one was looking at his phone. A third man sat with them. A baseball cap with New York Jets written on the brim was perched on his head, and he was wearing a purple Lacoste polo shirt. The elderly woman was finishing the sausage and mash special gravy, and was getting up to leave. She still had her little shopping bags. Another cyclist came in as Clovis and Eric were taking their seats. Faded blue lycra shorts, a wispy white beard, round-rimmed glasses, sharp darting eyes, a strong pointy nose, scowling, his helmet swinging in his hand. He sat down near the other three, but at a different table. Clovis and Eric nodded to him. The friendly cyclists that they were, he ignored them. "Charming," said Eric to no one in particular. "I'm Bill," said the bearded man, looking in their direction. "I'm Bob," said the fat man. "Bill and Bob," said Eric. "Tidy. I'm Eric." He nodded at Clovis. "Clovis." "Clovis," said Bob, the fat man. "Unusual name?" "Not really," said Clovis. Clovis was slim, but not as slim as Eric. Greying hair, but most of it still there on top of his head. Reasonable teeth, strong legs and spindly arms. Pale skins and liable to sunburn. Weak eyes, varifocal glasses. "Yes, it is," said Bob. "Steve," said the cyclist with the wispy white beard. "He's in charge," said Bob. "In charge of what?" said Eric. "Stuff," said Bob. "He's in charge of stuff, is what he is." "What stuff?" said Eric. Stuff, said Bob. "You know, stuff." There was half a large bacon sandwich on his plate. Thick toasted white bread, roughly sliced, a mean crust. Fatty pink bacon visible at the sides. He took a huge bite, almost half the sandwich disappearing into his mouth, butter running down his chin, a string of rind hanging out and dangling on his lip like a worm. It quivered until he sucked hard and it slithered inside his mouth and died on his tongue. The man in the baseball cap looked at Jay. "Coffee," he said. "Black, jug of cream, 4 sugars." He didn't say please. Jay brought him a coffee. Steve put his helmet on the floor beside his chair and took a small notebook from his rear pocket and began to study it. Jay went into the kitchen and switched on the radio. 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover," sang Paul Simon. "Love this song," said Steve to no one in particular. "Turn it up, Jay." He looked over at Clovis and Eric. "I'm in charge," he said. "Bacon sandwich, please," he called over to Jay. "Of course, boss," said Jay. "Coming right up." Clovis and Eric ate their tea cakes. "You know what winds me up?" said Clovis. "What?" "I'm in Sainsbury's, right, and I'm in the queue with my trolley. There's someone in front of me, and the belt is full, so I'm waiting. And then a couple of people come up behind me, so they're in the queue too. So then along comes a staff member, colleagues they're called now, not workers anymore, and says to the people behind me, right, 'Come over here, I'm opening a new till.' So they rush off, and I'm still queuing. I mean, how is that fair? Is that fair? I don't think it's fair." "It's in their mission statement," said Eric. "If there's more than 2 people waiting, they have to open a new till." "Doesn't help me, though, does it? I don't get a new till. I still have to wait. And I'll tell you something else," said Clovis. "This really winds me up. I've put my stuff on the belt, so I'm ready. I'm locked and loaded. And the person in front has finished and is paying, enter your PIN now, that sort of thing. And they decide to start a conversation with the cashier. Now, a conversation while they're processing the stuff, packing the bags, that's fine. But not when the transaction is finished. That's my time, see? They're eating into my transaction time. Fucking winds me up." "You're retired," said Eric. "What's the problem? You've got time." "They don't know that," said Clovis. "I don't look retired. I look like in my 50s, 40s even." "No, you don't," said Eric. "You look like you're retired." The cafe was warm and comfortable, relaxed, peaceful. Jay bustled about in his black trousers and his black shirt with the horn buttons like a fascist. The door opened in a gust of wind and a youngish man walked in. He was thick-set with a large head and curly hair, poor skin, a rucksack on his back, multiple layers of clothing covering other layers of clothing. He had earphones in his ears and was talking to himself in a loud voice as he came in. It was hard to make out actual sentences, but appeared to be a running commentary on events. Jay came out from behind his counter. "Yo, Jay," said the man in a loud voice. "Yo," said Jay, putting his arm around the man's shoulders. "Wolfie, how you doing?" In a lower voice. "You can have it outside." "And my man," said Wolfie. "Wolfie?" said Clovis to Eric, "as in Tooting Popular Fun." "Loved that show," said Eric. "Robert Lindsay, whatever happened to him?" "He got famous, and then he got unfamous," said Clovis, "and now he's disappeared." "Smack?" said Jay. "Yes," said Wolfie. "He wants tea and a fried egg sandwich with some chips, please." "Smack?" said Clovis. Unusual name. Clovis looked out of the front of the cafe and saw a black guy sitting at one of the tables. He had lots of dreadlocked hair, scraggly beard, bloodshot eyes and a thin, pinched face. He was carefully rolling a big cigarette using a number of cigarette papers. Jay put an arm on Wolfie's shoulder and hustled him gently but firmly towards the door. "I'll bring it out," he said. "How long's that ham been in there, you think?" said Eric, gesturing to the coal counter, which was full of sandwich ingredients. 3 days? 4? 5? "There's a limit," said Clovis. "I read it somewhere. Food standards. Health inspector comes in, sits around, has a coffee and watches to see how long the food is out for. Our man Steve, he could be a health inspector." "Sits around for 3 days?" said Eric. "Are you sure? On 1 cup of coffee? Wouldn't fancy that job." Bob looked over at them like he was appraising them, weighing them up. "What do you boys do then?" he said. "Are you cyclists?" "Do we look like cyclists?" said Eric. "No, not really," said Bob. "We're cyclists," said Eric. "You any good then? You in the Tour de France?" "Just the once," said Clovis. "Yeah? When was that then?" "I was joking," said Clovis. "I entered, never won." "You taking the piss?" said Bob, a little sharply. "Not me," said Clovis. "No offence." Bill said, "None taken, for now. Where do you ride?" "Around," said Eric. "Round here, sometimes a bit further. Kent, Surrey, Brighton sometimes, Whitstable even." "You ever go abroad?" "Sometimes." "Where? Where abroad?" "Different places," said Eric. "Belgium mostly. France, Mallorca, Tenerife. Clovis went to Sardinia once." "You go for long?" "Depends. Weekend, sometimes a week." "Interesting," said Bill. "How's that?" said Clovis. "Oh, you know, stuff." "What stuff?" Stuff, said Bill, and he looked at Bob. Steve was eating his bacon sandwich with relish and tomato relish. He exchanged a look with the 2 men on the banquette, but said nothing. The man in the purple Lacoste shirt got up and left. Well, that was chapter 2 of The Monument, and if you want to hear more, make sure you tune in to Misspoke episode 6, or if you can't wait for episode 6, you can buy The Monument from Amazon as a paperback, or if you're into Kindles or other reading devices, you can buy it on the Kindle from Amazon, and it's dirt cheap. So, hope you enjoyed stage 5 of Misspoke, a cycling podcast, and make sure you tune in for stage 6. Have a nice day.